Okay, so this time you've really given us quite a bit to unpack.
Yeah.
This transcript with Dolores Cannon.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff. We're talking about past lives,
Regrets.
encounters with beings on other worlds,
Right.
and even some hints about how life itself might have started here on Earth. It's like all these separate things,
Hmm.
but they might actually be way more connected than we realize.
Absolutely. It's a really interesting collection of ideas and experiences that we're going to be looking at.
Yeah.
What really struck me was just how wide-ranging the material is. It
Yeah.
touches on so many different areas, and our goal, as always, is to kind of help guide you through it all
Yeah.
and to tease out the most compelling and insightful pieces,
Yeah.
the things that will really make you think.
Exactly. We want to kind of give you a clear path through some pretty unconventional ideas.
Right.
So let's just dive right in.
Okay.
And start with Phil, the guy who's under hypnosis in this transcript.
Yeah.
Some of the things he describes in his regressions are wild. The one that really jumps out at you first is this whole plane crash thing. He initially sees himself as like a German pilot in World War II. Even has this vivid memory of a swastika. But when they do a deeper regression,
Yes.
it reveals something else completely.
What did that deeper regression show about this experience?
Well, that's one of the things that's so fascinating about this kind of work, right? It shows us that our first impressions can be way off.
Right.
The deeper regression showed that it was actually a civilian plane that got shot down near the French border.
Wow.
What's really striking, though, is how Phil describes the reaction of the people in the nearby village.
Oh, yeah.
They were so detached, almost like they were just watching a show. It's like they were accepting of the tragedy without even trying to help. Just observing.
That's pretty chilling.
It is.
Yeah.
It shows you that the emotional landscape of these experiences
Yeah.
can be really different from what we'd expect.
Totally different. Then we shift gears completely, and we're in South America
Okay.
with this ancient culture centered around a massive pyramid.
Hmm.
This time, Phil is experiencing life as a woman.
And remembers this really intense, ritualistic death ceremony for a queen.
Yeah.
What were the key details of that event?
It's really something that makes you think about the range of human beliefs and practices.
For sure.
Phil described how the queen's entire entourage willingly took a drug and were then put to death. They saw it as this huge honor to be buried with their queen.
Wow.
That's so far outside of how we view things today.
Totally.
It really makes you wonder about how different cultures across time and space understand life and death.
Absolutely. And in the same session,
Yeah.
he goes from that to having this intense experience of motherhood, actually feeling the physical sensations of childbirth.
That's right.
Talk about a swing of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But then the whole mood changes again with this thing they call the elevator regression.
Yeah,
The place he ends up in sounds bizarre
it does.
and just really unsettling.
It's a really strange description. He talks about these dark, sharp shapes against a red sky, and he felt this incredibly strong urge to get out of there.
Like he was trapped or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Like it was a place he didn't belong.
I could see why that would be disturbing. It doesn't sound like any place on Earth.
Right. It's not a place that we recognize. And then he focuses in on this spire with this big circular thing at the top.
He called it a huge donut.
Yes, a
Yeah.
huge donut. And he
Yeah.
had this overwhelming feeling of darkness, like he couldn't escape it.
This is where the transcript starts to suggest that this maybe wasn't a typical past life memory.
Right.
It could have been a glimpse into some other reality.
Exactly. Like maybe his consciousness tuned into a completely different realm for a little while, a place that operates under totally different rules.
Okay, so not a past life, but another world. That opens up some possibilities.
It does. And the fact that he had such a negative reaction to it suggests that the energy there might not have been so harmonious.
Interesting. And then after all that,
Yes.
he goes into these regressions into Nazi Germany,
Right.
which were filled with bitterness and fear.
It's quite a range of experiences, isn't it?
It is. It makes you think about the vastness of the experiences that his consciousness seems to be able to tap into.
Yeah. Whether we call them past lives or something else entirely, the emotions were very real for him.
For sure. Okay, so let's move on to another pretty big claim.
Okay.
Phil's supposed encounter with these humanoids on another planet.
All right.
These weren't your typical little green men, were they?
No, not at all. He described them as actually quite similar to humans, just taller, and with a few subtle differences.
Okay.
But the most fascinating thing about them was their mental and conscious development.
Really?
It was so advanced that they didn't even have the same kind of defense mechanisms that we have on Earth, like body language. They were completely open and honest.
Like they couldn't lie.
Exactly. Deception was impossible for them.
Wow, can you imagine a world where nobody could lie?
It's pretty mind-blowing, isn't it?
But the transcript says that this openness actually made Phil afraid.
It did, which I think tells us something important about human nature.
What do you mean?
Well, we're so used to reading people's body language and protecting ourselves that being around someone who's completely transparent could be really unsettling.
So he felt vulnerable.
I think so. Like he was exposed in a way that we're just not used to.
Interesting. The transcript also goes into detail about their lifespan and their aging process.
It does. It says that they live to be about 120 years old.
Okay.
And as they get older, their skin gets thinner and darker, they lose bone density, and they develop a type of arthritis, which is probably due to the lower gravity on their planet. It's about 1/6 of Earth's gravity.
So even though they're super advanced mentally and consciously, they still have physical limitations.
They do. They still experience illness and aging, just in different ways.
Different ways, but still biological.
Exactly. Their biology is just adapted to a different environment.
And what about their society? What was that like?
Well, it sounds fascinating. They govern themselves. And they have these very rare instances of what they call illness that seem to resemble mental or emotional disorders in humans.
And how do they deal with those?
In a really remarkable way. They treat these individuals with love and acceptance in special hospitals.
Hospitals?
Yeah. They focus on helping them find balance. And these illnesses usually manifest in self-destructive behaviors rather than harming others.
So it's a very compassionate approach.
Very much so. It speaks to a society that prioritizes understanding and well-being.
And it says that acts of what they call bad will are incredibly rare.
Right, like almost unheard of.
So they're pretty much a peaceful species.
It seems so. Their default state is one of goodness and cooperation.
But then there's this mention of a lower category of beings who are used for unskilled labor, like mining. That sounds a bit ethically questionable to me.
Yeah, it definitely raises some concerns. They describe these beings as looking kind of like animals, hairy with long arms and short legs, and they refer to the relationship as being the closest thing to slavery, although they emphasize that there's mutual acceptance and a sense of dignity.
So not slavery in the way we understand it.
Not exactly. These beings are cared for, but they're clearly in a subservient role. They do have emotional breakdowns sometimes, though, which can lead to accidental violence.
I see.
It's a complex aspect of their society, that's for sure.
It is. It's interesting that they don't have weapons for conflict.
Yeah, they specifically mention that.
But they do use electric charges to defend themselves against these huge dinosaur-like animals in their forests.
They do. And even then, they only use it to incapacitate the animals, not to kill them.
So they're nonviolent, even in self-defense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It seems to be a deeply ingrained principle for them.
They have a bartering system for their economy.
Right.
Which is interesting because they can't lie.
Right. So bartering works perfectly for them.
It does. And they travel in space.
They do, regularly.
But they can't travel in time.
No, they see time as a concept, not as something you can manipulate.
Okay. And they communicate telepathically.
Yes, through the power of their minds.
Right. It's like everything about them points to them being so advanced.
It does. And it gives them a real advantage when they interact with less developed races from other planets.
How so?
Well, they can immediately tell if someone is lying to them.
Oh, right. Because of their honesty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they can't be tricked or manipulated.
Wow. It's like their honesty is not just a moral thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's built into their very being.
Absolutely. It affects everything about how they relate to the universe.
Okay, so let's talk about this city that Phil sees with these tall, irregular spires.
Okay.
This isn't on the planet with the humanoids, is it?
No, this is a completely different experience.
Okay.
In this one, he meets a being with a non-humanoid head.
Interesting.
And they're both wearing these dark blue, tight-fitting suits with high collars.
Like uniforms or something.
It sounds like it.
Go on.
Phil feels like he lives in the countryside but commutes to work in the city.
He has a job there.
Yeah. He describes his workplace as this oval-shaped room with walls that felt like velvet. There was a podium and benches for people to sit on.
So what was the purpose of this city? What were they doing there?
That's where the idea of a four-dimensional existence comes in.
Oh, right.
The transcript suggests that this four-dimensional world is the same as the plane of existence that we go to between lives.
Okay, so it's not just heaven or hell.
Not exactly. It's
Yeah.
a different dimension, a place that's beyond our normal understanding of space and time.
So there's length with height,
Right.
and then something else.
Yes, something we can't really comprehend from our three-dimensional perspective.
And in this place, death isn't the end.
No, it's more like a process of deforming and decomposition. It happens when you've learned the lesson you needed to learn.
And then what?
Your energy goes back to its source, but your personality remains intact.
So you still exist.
Yes, but in a different form.
I see. And why wouldn't you want to live forever in this place?
Well, the transcript says that people would get bored. Yeah, they need growth and new experiences. It's like they wouldn't want to stay in third grade forever.
Makes sense. They have vehicles in this dimension, too.
They do. They're powered by pure energy.
Wow.
And they use them to work on things in this four-dimensional world, just like we use tools in our three-dimensional world.
Right. And any needs they have are just materialized?
Yeah. It's like they exist somewhere between physicality and pure thought.
Okay, so not quite physical.
Not in the way we understand it.
But not completely non-physical either.
Right.
And then beyond that,
Yes.
there are even higher planes.
Mm-hmm. Where everything is just thought.
Yeah.
No need for materialization or anything.
Wow. But there's this mention of extraordinary information and forbidden knowledge.
Right. It suggests that there's a hierarchy of knowledge and that some things are just too dangerous for us to know at our current level of understanding.
Like it could harm us?
Possibly.
Mm-hmm.
And there are these powerful beings called guides who oversee everything.
So it's not like a free-for-all.
No, there's structure and guidance.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so now we come to this big reveal.
All right.
That Phil's earlier past life experiences were probably not actual physical incarnations on Earth,
Right.
but something called imprinted memories, or WDR.
Yes, what they call walk-in downloaded records.
Walk-in downloaded records.
Yeah.
So what exactly is that, and what does it mean for us?
Okay, so imagine a universal library of experiences. Everything that's ever happened anywhere is stored there.
Right.
These WDRs are essentially memories that are downloaded from this library. They become part of a soul's experience.
So like installing a program on a computer?
Kind of. They provide a sense of having lived through these events even though the soul wasn't physically present.
Why would they do that?
The main reason seems to be to help souls from other planets or dimensions integrate into Earth life.
Like they need a crash course in being human.
Exactly. It gives them a basic understanding of our customs, our religions, our history. It helps them to fit in.
So these star children that come to Earth,
Right.
they come preloaded with these memories.
Yeah. In a way, yes. It's like a cultural orientation package.
So that explains why Phil had all those different experiences.
It could, yes. It's possible that those weren't his own personal past lives.
But memories from someone else's life.
Exactly. And for him, those memories would feel just as real as if he'd lived them himself.
So even though they're not his memories,
Right.
they're still a part of his experience.
Exactly. And the transcript also explains the concept of parallel lives through WDR.
Parallel lives.
Yes. It suggests that souls can actually experience multiple lives simultaneously.
Wow.
It's a way of maximizing learning and growth.
Like multitasking for the soul.
Kind of. And accessing this vast library of knowledge through WDR isn't just beneficial for the person experiencing it.
Right.
It can also benefit us by giving us a broader perspective on consciousness and the nature of reality.
So it's like we're all learning from these experiences.
In a way, yes. And the specific memories that a soul receives are tailored to its purpose.
So if someone is meant to be a leader, they might get memories of being a leader in a past life.
Exactly. But they also get memories of things like humility, patience, joy, entertainment, rest.
So a balance of experiences.
Right. It's about developing a well-rounded understanding of the human experience.
But the transcript says that the exact source of these WDRs and how they work
Yes.
is still a mystery.
It is. We don't have the full picture yet.
And there's a warning about sharing too much information about star children.
Yes, because it could put them at risk.
People might be afraid of them.
Exactly. Especially with all the negative portrayals of aliens in the media.
It's sad that people would react that way.
It is, but it's understandable. Fear of the unknown is a powerful force.
True. So these star children come with this built-in understanding of human emotions.
Yes.
But the extraterrestrial beings who are just visiting temporarily, they don't get those imprinted memories.
Right. They have to learn about human behavior through observation and study.
That's interesting. So they're like anthropologists.
In a way, yes. They're here to learn about us.
And the transcript says that these beings are often very human themselves.
It does, and challenges the idea that all aliens are cold and emotionless.
So they have positive qualities too.
Yes, They're not so different from us in many ways.
Even though they're from another planet.
Exactly. And Phil himself talks about feeling like an outsider on Earth, yeah, even though people don't see him as different.
Which makes sense if he has all these imprinted memories.
It could create a sense of not belonging.
And sadly, not everyone who has these experiences can integrate them successfully.
That's right. The transcript mentions suicide as a possible outcome.
That's heartbreaking.
It is. It shows how difficult it can be to reconcile these experiences with our everyday reality.
Okay, so let's go back to that vision of the landscape with the 3 peaks.
Okay.
This time, Phil's reaction is completely different.
It's a powerful moment.
It is. He says this is home, and he's overcome with this feeling of love and belonging.
Yes. It's like he's finally found where he truly belongs.
Like he's been searching for this place his whole life.
And he realizes that Earth isn't his true home. He feels this intense longing for that other planet.
It must have been a profound realization.
It was. And the transcript says that these peaks aren't just natural formations. They're also a monument and an antenna, a center of interplanetary communication.
Really?
Yes. It's the central point of that planet.
Wow. And Phil has this emotional breakdown after he comes out of the trance.
Because he's just overwhelmed with love and connection to this place.
It sounds like a very powerful memory.
It is, whether it's a literal past life or just a deep soul connection.
So what does this planet look like?
It's a green field with 3 white peaks, each with a square base and 4 sides that come to a point.
And they're just standing there by themselves.
Yes. No other structures around them.
And the planet itself.
It's similar to the Earth, but not exactly the same.
Okay, so this leads us to the idea of an energetic body.
Yes.
Which is something we haven't really talked about before.
Right. It's a concept that's central to understanding a lot of this material.
So what is it?
It's basically a body that's made of pure energy.
Pure energy.
Yes. It's separate from our physical body.
Okay.
And it exists outside of our 3-dimensional understanding.
So we can't see it.
Not with our physical eyes.
But it's still a part of us.
Yes, it's like a container for our true essence.
Our true essence.
Yes, our soul or spirit.
Okay, and on this planet, where Phil feels at home, the population is constantly changing.
It is. Beings come and go and visit. It's like a cosmic melting pot.
And they're all energetic beings.
Yes, from all over the universe.
And they don't need physical bodies there.
No, their energetic bodies are enough.
And they communicate through intuition.
Yes, at an energetic level. They don't need words or physical gestures.
Wow. It's like they're all connected.
They are. It's a society based on unity and shared consciousness.
And Phil has apparently existed on this planet for a very long time.
He has, in many different forms.
Wow. And there are no cities or buildings on this planet?
No, only natural formations. Their understanding of life is based on energy, not material things.
So they're not a technological civilization.
Not in the way we understand it.
And this brings us back to why we're having this conversation.
Yes.
To become more aware of these invisible worlds and how they operate.
Exactly. And the transcript suggests that Earth is a very specific kind of place.
Okay.
It's a learning environment, a ladder for consciousness to evolve.
So we're here to learn and grow.
Yes. To experience new things and to overcome challenges.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the history of life on Earth.
All right.
The transcript says that the basic seeds of life actually came from other worlds.
Yes. It suggests that life didn't originate here on Earth.
Really?
Yes, it was sown here from other planets.
So like a cosmic garden.
Exactly.
Wow. But what about the different human races?
Well, they say that those developed over time due to the influence of different environments, especially along the Nile River.
So we're all connected.
We are, but the initial spark of life came from somewhere else.
And how'd that happen?
According to the transcript, Earth was given the privilege of life when it was deemed ready by these advanced beings.
Advanced beings?
Yes, beings who study planets and their environments.
So there's like cosmic gardeners.
I guess you could say that.
And they decided that Earth was a good place to start life.
Yes. They saw its potential and they nurtured it.
That's incredible. And where did these seeds of life come from?
From more evolved planets within our universe.
So there was no life on Earth before this happened?
That's what the transcript suggests. It says there were no cells or anything.
Just a barren planet.
Until these beings brought life to it.
Wow. That completely changes our understanding of how things began.
It does. It challenges a lot of our assumptions.
So then Phil has this session where his consciousness shifts again.
Okay.
And he doesn't go back to the 3-peaked planet.
Yeah.
Instead, he sees trees and a silver spaceship that's waiting for a 3-member crew who are coming back from the forest.
And this is different from the other experiences.
How so?
Because this time it's presented as Phil's actual past incarnation.
Oh, wow. So not an imprinted memory.
No, this is him actually being present in Earth's early history.
So what's he doing there?
The crew is collecting soil and plant samples.
Why?
Because Earth is about to receive the gift of life.
The gift of life.
Yes. They're there to assess whether the environment can support animal and human life.
Okay, so it's a fact-finding mission.
Exactly.
And they're focusing on soil and plants because those are essential for a healthy ecosystem.
Right. It's the foundation of everything.
And what do they do with these samples?
They put them in these special containers and send them first to a mothership, then to a command center in their part of the galaxy. Then they send them through something called cosmic mail to the central universe.
Cosmic mail.
Yes, it's like their version of intergalactic communication.
So it's a whole process.
It is very organized and complex. They even compare it to Earth's administrative system.
Wow, so even on a cosmic level, there's bureaucracy.
It seems so.
And can these crew members breathe Earth's air?
They don't say. They're not allowed to reveal that information, but they do say that they can move around comfortably.
And what do they look like?
They're described as short and slender. And they're wearing silver full-body suits to protect themselves from the intense UV radiation.
Right, because the Earth's atmosphere wasn't stable yet.
Exactly. And they don't give specific details about their faces or anything.
Right.
They want to avoid people making generalizations about how aliens look.
That's smart. So, to be clear, Earth's minerals and plants.
Yes.
Those develop naturally.
Right, from those primordial cells in the primeval soup.
But animals and humans.
Yes.
Those were introduced from elsewhere.
Exactly. That's the key distinction.
It's a mix of evolution and intervention.
Right. It's not just one or the other.
Okay, so after life is sown on a planet, they keep an eye on things.
They do. They check in on the progress.
But sometimes things happen that they didn't plan for.
Like what happened on Earth.
Right. What was that?
A meteorite hit Earth.
Okay.
And it was carrying a terrifying virus and some other organisms.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, these organisms adapted to Earth's environment. And they mixed with the existing life forms. It's like when weeds start growing in a garden.
You can't get rid of them.
Exactly. And they don't go into detail about the consequences, but they say that these weeds are now part of the genetic code of various life forms on Earth.
Oh, it's not just humans.
No, it's everything.
Yeah.
It affects the very foundation of life on our planet.
That's a big deal.
It is. And they're very careful about the language they use. They say that hybrid plants is not the right analogy.
Interesting. So what was their reaction to this?
Sadness and bewilderment.
They didn't expect it?
No, it was a complete surprise to them.
And they couldn't undo it?
No, the genetic changes were permanent.
So their hopes for Earth were diminished?
Yeah, it wasn't what they had envisioned.
It's interesting that they can be disappointed, too.
It is. It shows that even though they're advanced, they're still subject to the ups and downs of life.
Or I guess you could say the ups and downs of the universe.
Right.
Okay, so then the discussion turns to this whole thing about the Earth's axis shifting. What's that all about?
Well, the Earth's rotation is slowing down.
Okay.
That means that the magnetic poles are going to shift.
And what will that cause?
More volcanic eruptions, disruptions in the flow of water, and a potential 30-degree shift in the poles.
30 degrees?
Yes, within the next 40 years.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And what about nuclear war?
That could make things much worse.
How so?
It could trigger a rapid and catastrophic pole shift.
So it could wipe out humanity?
It's a possibility.
And when is this natural pole shift going to happen?
They don't know for sure. It depends on Earth itself and the Father in heaven.
So higher powers involved?
It seems so.
Yeah.
And they mentioned that some dinosaurs actually survived a previous axis shift.
Really?
Yes, the smaller ones, they were able to adapt.
But the bigger ones died out.
Right, they couldn't adjust.
And get this. They say that humans and dinosaurs coexisted at one point.
Yes, which contradicts the scientific timeline.
Big time.
But they say that science doesn't have the full picture.
And they mentioned that there have been discoveries of human and dinosaur remains together.
But the scientific community is hesitant to accept it.
They don't want to rewrite the textbooks.
I guess not.
So apparently the humanoid form is pretty common in the universe.
It is. It seems to be a successful design.
And they say that the cosmic beings stopped visiting Earth regularly.
Yes.
Once life reached the human stage.
Right. It's like they let us evolve on our own once we reached a certain level.
But they're still watching.
Yes, observing but not interfering.
These observing beings are physical beings.
They are, but they're not from Earth.
So where do they come from?
They don't say, but their bodies are sometimes formed or borrowed?
Formed or borrowed?
Yes. It's not clear what that means exactly.
And they describe early humans as being primitive for millions of years.
Yes, before modern humans emerged.
And they even mention the giants from the Bible.
Right. They say those were an early human race that were 8 or 9 feet tall.
Wow. And their genes are still present today.
That's what they say.
So what about this whole daughters of men thing in the Bible?
Well, they explain that as interbreeding between cosmic beings and early humans.
Interbreeding?
Yes. They say it was done to help stimulate human evolution.
So we wouldn't be stuck in a primitive state.
Right. It was a way of giving us a boost.
Wow. That's a controversial idea.
It is. But it's interesting to consider.
So the knowledge that was given to humanity
Mm-hmm.
was a gift with no strings attached.
That's right.
No manipulation or control.
And each society is responsible for what they do with that knowledge.
Exactly. They have to protect it and use it wisely.
But often that doesn't happen.
No, the knowledge gets distorted and misused.
Power struggles, greed, all that.
Right. It's the human condition.
So they chose Earth because it was so fertile.
Yes. It was a good place to sow life.
And they even gave us knowledge about which foods were best for different environments. They did. Which might explain some of the dietary laws in the Old Testament.
Okay, and what about the Maya?
The Maya.
Yes, they just disappeared.
Well, they say that the Maya were actually transported by spaceships.
Spaceships.
Yes, to save them from the Spanish conquest.
Wow, so they weren't wiped out.
No, they were rescued.
And they've done that for other civilizations too.
Yes, when those civilizations reached a certain level and needed help to survive.
So they're not just observers.
No, they intervene when necessary.
And what about today? Are they still helping us?
They say they are. They're sending star seeds to Earth.
Star seeds.
Yes, souls who are here to help us evolve.
How do they do that?
By introducing new ideas and challenging old ways of thinking.
Like what?
Well, they say that we're too focused on material success.
Right.
And that we need to find a more balanced way of living.
So it's not that money is bad.
Right.
It's just that it shouldn't be our only goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to focus on things like love and compassion and connection.
And are we the only planet that's struggling with these issues?
No, they say that many planets face similar challenges.
Barbarism, tyranny.
All of that.
But sometimes they can't intervene.
Right, because they have to respect free will.
So they have to wait for us to ask for help.
In a way, yes. They can't force us.